The FNBB Budget Review session of 2013 recently brought together corporate directors, heads of parastatals, government officials and other members of the business community after the reading of the 2013 budget speech in Parliament. To both analyze the implications of the budget speech and also present invaluable, accurate view of the current state of affairs. But like the Chief Executive Officer of FNB, Lorato Ntakwana, said, there was another motive for bringing together these stakeholders.
Through the FNB budget dinner, we endeavored to bring together a select panel of experts from both the public and private sector, whose role is to deepen our understanding of the budget proposals. However, needless to say, this forum also serves another purpose. With it, we at FNB strive to bring together active participants in the private and public sector to inform and debate on pertinent issues in the global economy, as well as the local economy and the budget proposals. It is my earnest hope that out of tonight's session, lasting business relationships will be built. Let's use tonight's session as a forum of constructive and informative debate. In the wider interest of national prosperity, let us sharpen our minds and open our eyes to the opportunities provided within the budget proposals, and let us find creative and innovative solutions to the looming challenges. At FNB, we rely on innovation to deliver relevant solutions to our customers. I hope this platform demonstrates the effectiveness of an approach that has helped FNB Botswana to claim a unique position of leadership in the market.
On tonight's program, we sit down with pundits from the 19th FNBB Budget Review to discuss both the contents and implications of the 2013 national budget on tax, business, and ultimately every Motswana. I am Nameto Sibina, and this is First Issues. Sizwe Ngedlana is Chief Economist at FNB. Prior to that, he was a senior economist in FNB's wealth segment, where he was involved with macroeconomics and investment research and is a member of the investment and asset allocation committees. My co-presenter Shadile Nswe discusses the current status of the global economy with him.
Can you give our viewers an overview of your presentation tonight? Just a brief overview.
Our core theme or core assumption with respect to global growth is that following a period in 2011 and 2012 of intensifying moderation in global economic activity, that we go into 2013 with slightly better news in that global economic activity is actually likely to stabilize and improve gradually over the course of 2013 going into 2014. And the main reason for that is that the three major issues that were hurting global business and consumer confidence and also investor confidence have abated quite significantly. And these are the Eurozone sovereign debt crisis, of which we've seen massive progress in terms of providing a framework and the foundations for a resolution. The Chinese economy didn't experience a hard landing, and the US fiscal cliff, some of it has been resolved and some of it has been postponed, and we expect that around March we should see further resolution of that. So the three main problems that were reducing confidence are now much less of an issue.
As a viewer watching at home, you may be wondering what all this talk means, especially for a country like Botswana that relies on diamonds for 50% of its revenue, a commodity that is completely at the mercy of fluctuations in the global economy.
Well, to the extent that global growth starts to improve, one then starts to see fundamental underpin for commodity demand. So we've seen massive improvements in commodity prices, and commodity exporters should not only benefit from improving commodity prices, but also improving commodity volumes. So commodity producing nations like Botswana are now faced with a bit of a global tailwind or support from global economic activity relative to a global environment that was a bit of a headwind or not very supportive in the last 2 or 3 years.
What do you forecast for the next 2 quarters?
Well, we're expecting global GDP to stabilize and to accelerate into the second half of the year and into 2014.
Shadi next speaks to Peter O'Halloran, the MD of a Botswana trust company called Kingsway Trust Company, who has been involved in estate and trust law for over 2 decades, to get his expert analysis on the implications of the national budget on our taxes.
You mentioned that Botswana has one of the lowest tax rates in the region. But then why are we having so many missed opportunities?
We are having some missed opportunities, yes. There's competitors out there, and I don't want to say anything too controversial, but we do sometimes have a little bit of a challenge with some of our civil servants who perhaps are less accommodating than others. Now, if you want to encourage people to come here, I'm not saying that you have to fall over backwards and be the friendliest person in the world, but you must be reasonable. There was a very unfortunate case of Econet Wireless, which was a company that set up in Botswana as an IFSC, and the tax authorities treated Econet Wireless in a manner that was not very satisfactory, and after going to the High Court, they then had to go to the appeal court to get, to get justice. And by the time that whole process had run its course, that company decided to move and is now in Mauritius. So had we had just a little bit more of a reasonable approach, that company could still be here. You might find that there would still be some employment and some tax revenue and all that. So I think, just a little bit of a mind shift. We don't want our tax authorities to be toothless. They must be robust. They must be aggressive, but they must be reasonable. And if you have a reasonable set of tax gatherers, and you have, you apply the rule of law impartially, then this jurisdiction is going to be an absolute winner, because we're right in the middle of the action. We're very close to Johannesburg, not far from the other major centres as well. We've got no exchange controls, the lowest tax rate in Africa. We've got a stable government, a government with a very good reputation amongst the business community within SADC. So there's every reason to actually expect that we could encourage a lot of companies to come and set up here.
Peter seemed enthused by our tax policies, but disappointed by pockets of poor service delivery. Shadi then asked him what his experiences have been and what his concerns are.
You mentioned the attitude and inefficiencies of the civil service.
I didn't say inefficiency, but sometimes, I know some people at for instance, BERS, that are absolutely excellent people. When I need some service, I know the right people to go to, and I get the right service. But sometimes you get companies coming here that are given such a hard time. And when a company gives a good explanation and proves that it's innocent, then perhaps the attitude should change, and that company should then be accommodated rather than to try and seek other ways to get more tax out of the company.
So you think it's more about policy or more about attitude?
It's more about attitude. I think the policy is dead right. I don't think there's anything wrong with Botswana's tax policy. If the tax authorities would realize how very valuable their contribution is to the entire investment the investment selling process, then I think we would do a lot better.
In your presentation, you made a lot of reference to Mauritius and the opportunities that maybe Mauritius is taking advantage of,
yes,
which would have
yes,
initially gone to Botswana. Could you highlight perhaps the 3 main issues with that?
Yes, I think the first issue, obviously some of them that just want the very best tax deal possible. And I very much respect the fact that Botswana, for argument's sake, your IFSC legislation says 15%. Now, if a fellow wants to go and pay no tax, I don't really think that's the right thing. So some companies you're going to lose because they don't want to pay tax at all, or whatever the case is. They probably will run into problems with their home base jurisdictions. So the low tax thing. The other thing is that Mauritius, you can go to Mauritius and you can set up a company very, very quickly. Now, to set up an IFSC company here, and I'm a particular fan of the IFSC rules. You see, the IFSC is a very special set of, or a very special company regime structure that's allowed in Botswana. We've used the Dublin model, the Irish model. Now in Ireland, it's worked very, very, very well. There's low tax in these companies. There's no withholding tax. And it encourages, well, in fact, those companies are set up to trade internationally. So the IFSC model could work very, very well in Botswana. It's just that it takes so very, very long to set one up. If you go and set up a special company in Mauritius, you can set it up within a matter of days. Here, your IFSC companies, weeks, months, you know. So we could be a bit quicker. We could be a bit quicker. I think, and I don't want the authorities to think that I'm a firebrand or I'm knocking them. I'm not. I would like to see an attitude of the authorities where they're not that suspicious of all comers. You know, most people that I do business with, in fact, probably all the people that I do business with, are entirely honest and ethical people. And, you know, if they come to my firm, it takes them a few hours to set up an account with us. And it should be the same when they come to Botswana to set up an account being a company. It shouldn't take a long time. Of course, if a fellow's got a bad record, by all means, deny him access. But if you've got a company that looks good and there's no black marks, then you want him here.
Lastly, we discuss that most burning question of the impact of the national budget on business and the investment climate with the country managing director of Accenture, Mr. Bashi Khaitsalwe. Mr. Khaitsalwe is an advisor to many of the top firms and public service organizations in Botswana and in the region, and has over 18 years' experience covering the banking, telecommunications, insurance, manufacturing and mining industries. He is a common commentator on this subject.
Thank you for joining us on First Issues, Mr. Khaitsalwe.
Thank you for having me.
Can you unpack some of the implications of the budget on our business community?
There are a number of key implications for the business community. I think the first one is the recognition that our economy has been growing at over 7% for the last two years. I think that's a major achievement. We've not seen growth like that in a very, very long time. So I think it is a sign that perhaps the economy in Botswana is starting to improve a little bit. And I think the business community, I think, certainly has an opportunity to hang on to that small bit of growth and start to seek opportunities to increase that growth. I think as the second implication coming out of the budget is the fact that non-mining GDP has grown at 11.8%. This is a staggering amount, and I think it's starting to indicate, perhaps, if the figure is correct, that non-mining GDP or the private sector is starting to take hold and can grow on its own and start to make a meaningful contribution to GDP. These are small indications, they're small steps, but I think the private sector has an opportunity to grab these and continue the momentum.
What do you think the budget has done for industries and certain sectors that have sort of fallen on the wayside as the recession picked up?
I think if you look at the budget holistically, you will see that it's fundamentally different from previous budgets, especially those that appeared before maybe 2008, 2009. The biggest difference is that we are seeing government spending less and less on the mega projects. So your industries like your construction industry, the manufacturing sector, are starting to see government spending less and less in those sectors. This, I believe, will be an ongoing trend. I think those industries will start to experience what we call the new normal. a normal reality where government is really spending less in those sectors because of the global constraints, because of other constraints within the economy. I think it's a tough reality, but it's the reality that we have to face.
During his presentation, Bashi Khaetshalwe quoted the insightful saying, "Don't tell me what you value. Show me your budget and I'll tell you what you value." What then does our national budget say about our priorities as a country?
There are many things that we've made. I think some of them have been good, some of them have not been so good. I think a couple of key ones, I think, is that we have chosen to invest heavily in education. Again, if you look at the budget, not surprisingly, education takes a huge chunk of the budget. Again, when you unpack that, you start to say, where is that money being spent? So although it's good that education is getting all this money, it's a sign that Botswana is investing not just for today, but for the future. Where is that money going? Is it still going to build more secondary schools, more primary schools? Or is it going into new innovations, new types of curriculum, new ways of preparing our kids, our children, to participate in the global economy? So I think it's got some good points and it's got some question marks. Another big choice and a big difference is that the utility sector, particularly water and power, is seeing a big upsurge in funding. They take a significant portion of the development budget, which again shows government's deliberate decision to unlock value from coal mining, from even some of the gas deposits that are out there, and certainly to try to make Botswana more secure in terms of water and electricity. Those are deliberate decisions. Again, very positive decisions. I do think that we need to move faster on those and we need to execute better on those.
Mr. Khaetshalwe pointed out the challenge of a poor execution of projects, stunting our progress. He shared with Shadi the ways in which he would address this challenge.
Yeah, that's actually putting it mildly. I think our execution, to be honest, is terrible. Right? You know, we have a reputation of saying a lot of things, planning a lot, strategizing a lot, benchmarking a lot, but when it comes time to actually doing and delivering, we really drag our feet. And I think it's a systemic problem, and I think it will take a wide array of tools. If I was to be in charge and to look after implementation and execution, I think there are a number of things I would do. I think certainly number one, you would need to have a very strong process to select your projects very carefully and to make sure those projects are geared up for success from the beginning. In other words, you can't say I want to build a 700 million Bula school, right, and then you don't have the funds to be able to support that. You don't have the skills in-house to be able to manage that. So I think it starts by saying, will the project succeed and are they geared up to succeed in the beginning? So selecting those projects very carefully is a very, very important thing. Secondly, I think you need very strong monitoring and evaluating, right? You need tools and systems that can tell you, right from day one, are we on track? It's no use learning that the stadium will not be ready the day that the day before the World Cup starts. I mean, we need to know in month 1 that we're behind target, in month 2 that we're behind target, in month 3 we need to get rid of the contractor. We need to look at the project manager from the government side and we need to get rid of him. Right? I mean, I think if we're really serious about executing, we need to have stronger tools for monitoring and evaluating, and we need to be able to make better decisions and faster decisions around non-performance, whether it is a contractor, whether it's a government employee. That's very, very important. And I think lastly, we do need to start to appreciate project management as a discipline. I think we do need to have more project managers, more people that are seasoned as professional project managers that understand the requirements of being able to take a project from concept right down to execution. So I think a combination of those tools will become very, very important. Other things that normally make a big difference are issues around change management. And that's a very, very important skill. It's something that people leave out all the time. But if I'm going to be building a new sewage in a village, even before I map where the pipe is going to go, I need to be going into that community. I need to have dialogue with them. I need to bring them on board. I need to get them to support the project. Many times contractors arrive, they start, digging trenches that nobody knows what they are. Villages are up in arms. People are digging through our tsimus, through our backyards, and that causes delays, it causes conflict. So change management, the ability to let people understand what's happening and to be able to carry them with you, to put it in a simple way, and to get them to support the project is a vital component of execution.
It is now time for a stock market review by Thapelo Theole.
We look at the performance of the Botswana Stock Exchange in the past week. The domestic company index, which is a measure of performance of all domestic companies, have gone up by 0.2%. This basically means that on year-to-date basis, from January, the beginning of the year, to now, the market have actually increased by 4%, which is a good return based on the past few years. We look at the foreign company index, it have gone down at about 0.2%. Not so good, but I think it will correct as the time goes on. The total turnover for the market for this past week is about 3.5 million. But on average, on daily, since the beginning of this year, we're looking at large volumes coming to the market. The daily average turnover is about 4 million pula worth of shares traded per day. And this is a very good improvement compared to the previous years, looking at how far we have gone into the year. So this basically means that we're going to see, possibly we're expecting increased levels of turnover in the coming few months. And it's a result of a variety of things. First, I suspect it is the automated trading system. Secondly, a lot of our companies in the domestic company have actually done very well. Some companies have gone up to 98%. Some have realized share price rising by far much more than 50%. So this is an attraction to a lot of investors in the market.
Our panelists tonight brought many issues to our attention. Pockets of poor service delivery and the ineffective execution strategies hindering the advancement of our national goals. But the overall analysis of the 2013 national budget is a surprisingly positive one, despite the ripple effects that continue from the economic downturn and other challenges that we still face. From me, Nameto Sibina, my co-presenter Shadile Ntswe, the team behind First Issues, and our sponsors First National Bank, we wish you a good night and pleasant viewing.